Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for another pre-season game reaction live stream, as well as, of course, your transfer news, because Chelsea have signed a player, not quite officially yet, but we've got the here we go. We'll talk about that. Is it a good deal? Is it a bad deal? What does it mean for Caicedo? Does it mean anything? Could we end up signing Sanchez and not Caicedo and look like a bunch of clowns? We could do, but hopefully not. So we will talk about that, as well as, of course, Chelsea finishing pre-season unbeaten for the first time since 2011. Now, I would be absolutely hyped by that, but obviously our 2011-2012 league campaign was actually pretty damn dreadful. So, but in comparison to last season, it was pretty good because we finished 6th back then. But back then, that was dreadful. Now, 12th is dreadful and 6th is all right, really. So make of that what you will. But yeah, we drew Dortmund 1-0. We're a much better team. Shouldn't have really gone 1-0 down. Kind of went 1-0 down to Dortmund's first attempt at scoring a goal, really. But thankfully, Mason Burstow, who would have thought we'd have another Mason turning up, scoring important goals for us after selling Mason Mount. But here we are. Mason Burstow getting the equaliser to at least make it look a little bit better, even if obviously it mostly is about the performance. But the big downer of the night, Christopher Nkunku's injury. Now, I know I put in the title on the thumbnail, Christopher Nkunku injury update. I'll be honest, there isn't really much of an update. But, if Chelsea can clickbait like that on the 5th stand-up, why shouldn't I be able to do that? Because they were like, oh, Pochettino has an update on Nkunku's injury. I'm like, fuck all did he have? He just said, oh, I don't know. Brilliant. But basically, we don't know. We'll talk about it in more depth in a minute. Connor, I will start with you. First of all, thank you for coming back on. Appreciate it very much. With a view to yesterday, but also with a view to pre-season, I guess, a bit more overall. What have you made of what's been happening over in the US, other than the pitch being absolutely awful last night? Did you expect it to go as well, in quotation marks, as it has? Did you think it would go better? Did you think it would go worse? Well, how do you feel about it, especially after the last game now?
First of all, thanks for having me back. I think it was just about what I expected. I think we've done really well. Probably a little bit better than I would have thought. I think it was more about just seeing the patterns emerge, because I think last season was just such chaos and just such a mess that we didn't really see. There were so many different patterns last season that we've came to just allow. Whereas now we're actually starting to see Pochettino really put an imprint on the team really early on. I was quite surprised how quickly against Wrexham, especially how quickly it looked like we'd learned his sort of philosophy quite quickly. So yeah, I'm very happy about it's gone. Been a few gems that we've looked to uncovered, such as Jackson, which I'm sure we'll talk about, players like this who've done really well in pre-season. So yeah, I've been really impressed. There's not too many weaknesses for a pre-season. Of course, there's we've conceded a few goals and we've had certain mistakes and certain players that haven't been up to scratch, which again I'll talk about when you bring it up. But yeah, I think as a whole, as far as pre-season goes, I'm very happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, really. On the one hand, I understand, because obviously we have to travel back now, time zones and stuff, but also, a few days rest after a tough preseason. But still, we still have basically 10 days to go until our first game, and we don't have an official friendly anymore. Seems quite long before to have the last friendly. I don't know if I'm imagining it, and it's always like this. But like I said in the last stream yesterday, I assume we're probably going to have 1 or 2 behind closed doors friendlies, a couple still. But we'll have to wait and see. Pys, I'll come to you. First of all, thank you for being back on. We will talk about Dortmund and the Dortmund game with you as well. But we did decide, before we get into Dortmund, we will talk about the major transfer news of the day. And I will just start it off with that with you. According to, initially David Ornstein and then Fabrizio with the numbers, Chelsea have signed Robert Sanchez from Brighton. First of all, what do you make of it? Maybe you can give the people more detail, because then I can just let you speak, as you know much better anyway. But yeah, thoughts? Crazy? Because how can it take us 7 months to get Caicedo done? 7+? Obviously, it's not really 7 months, but you get what I mean, because we're first interested in January. And Robert Sanchez literally took 3 days. How's that happen then?
Yeah, no, good to be back on. And the Sanchez deal is really interesting for me, because he's been on our list for quite a while now, at least a couple of months, but, it all kind of went quiet, and I think we was just waiting to see what goalie we would get. Slanina got on loan, I thought, okay, well, there's going to be a new goalie very soon, because, I was starting to think, well, maybe Slanina will be the backup, but yeah, I think with this Sanchez deal, I just hope it helps us get, 10 million down on Caicedo. I think that would be nice. I think 20 to 25 mil is quite a, like if he performs as he did before De Zerbi came, I mean, that's a great price. Doesn't get things wrong. Like, definitely a really good price. But currently now, he's the third choice goalkeeper because they've signed a new goalie, I think, for Bruggen as well. I think his name is, from Belgium. Very highly rated. So yeah, he's been way down the pecking order. But I mean, there's definitely positives for me. Ben Roberts is here, who was obviously his goalkeeper coach. We've got another goalkeeper coach. And I think it's I want to use the word competition for Kepa. I personally believe you have your number one and then that's it. But we'll see what happens. We don't have many games to rotate either this year. But yeah, I mean, for me,
I guess we could play Sanders in every cup game and Kepa in every league
could,
game, or the other way around, I guess. But
even then, there's only really the two domestic cup competitions. Like I don't know, but yeah, we'll see on that one. But I think for me, looking at the Caicedo deal now, I hope it helps us get that one over the line because we've kind of solved one of their problems. They was even open to a loan apparently, according to the Athletic, and we've just gone in and bought him. So I find that interesting as well.
And we still gave them a sell-on clause, which is baffling.
Yeah, according to the BBC, we have as well. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, Ornstein or anyone else didn't mention it, but maybe that is true. And if so, I mean, that's very interesting. I could say we got mugged off there, but I could also say, well, Brighton clearly still rate him. They probably think we can sell him for more in the future, and they want a piece of that pie. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think it's an interesting signing, but for me, just go and get Caicedo. Like, I know Gallagher played good last night. I know Santos has played good, but Caicedo was the one. We came into this window wanting Caicedo, and we still haven't got him. So hopefully it's the end game now. I'd like to get him by the end of this week, Sunday or Monday at latest. So then he has a few days and can then play against Liverpool, because I think if it drags late into next week, obviously he's not going to start. So please, Chelsea, hurry up on this one and make sure he can start against Liverpool.
Exactly. And I mean, we will touch on that because a certain individual played the whole game in the pivot yesterday. Was arguably surprisingly good at it, but certainly not the player that any of us expected to be potentially starting in the double pivot against Liverpool come the first game of the season. That would be mental. Before I continue on my thoughts on Sanchez, which haven't really changed since we spoke about it yesterday when the news first became a big thing, but they've made it official within the day. So what can I say? Speak about the same thing again. I'll let you talk about it first, Conor. What do you make of the Robert Sanchez deal? Now, I'm not exactly sure what you think of Kepa, but also maybe compare Sanchez to Kepa in your mind, like who you think's better or whatever, and how you see that going. Like, officially, it's competition. Do you think it's going to be Kepa to start with, and then eventually we're trying to put Sanchez in, or is Sanchez just number two unless Kepa screws up? Like, how do you see that one going, and what do you make of the deal?
Yeah, it's a really funny one for me because I was very willing to keep Kepa this season as the number one if it meant that we strengthened in other areas. So for me, I had midfield, then a striker. This was before we got Jackson.
Yeah.
And then a goalkeeper. That was my third priority.
Yeah.
And I don't hate Kepa as much as some people do. I think he doesn't really instill like confidence in the defenders. Like, the long shots are an issue, and like that aspect of it, but I do think he can
concede a single long
okay.
shot this pre-season, mind you.
Yeah, true. But I just think he's open to them, obviously, like, as we know. That's the main thing he gets criticism for, I think. And Sanchez is a bigger frame. He's very good with the ball at his feet. He's known for that. Like, De Zerbi used him at Brighton in the same way to play out from the back. So he would fit the system really well with Poch becoming that fourth man to sort of play out from the back, or fifth man, however we set up.
Would you say he's much better than Kepa at that? Because obviously when we initially signed Kepa for Sarri, it had the same reason. So it's not like Kepa is dreadful with the ball at his feet, is he?
No.
Especially compared to bloody Mendy, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, Kepa is good with the ball at his feet. I rate him with the ball at his feet. I think he has a mistake in him is the issue, I think, where Sanchez is good with the ball at his feet. I'd say Sanchez may be slightly better just because he's less error prone, maybe. Okay. But they're quite similar. To get to the point, sorry. I think that they will... No, sorry, they're not on you. I'm just saying so that I don't forget my thought process. I think they are both going to just offer competition to each other, but not necessarily in the sense like you two were saying about like one playing in the cup, one playing in the league. I think it will just come down to whichever one's pushing each other to the limit and whichever one's playing at the best in training, or whoever's deserving of that number one spot will play, and the other one will just continue to try and push their way into the side. So I think it will start with Kepa.
It could be like for both of them an in and out situation as the season goes on.
I wouldn't say in and out because obviously we want to create like stability, but I think
Exactly. That's my worry about it.
Yeah, I think Kepa will keep the number 1 spot until he messes up. Which again, like as much as I don't mind Kepa, it's inevitable. There will be a point in time where he gets dropped because it happens with him. We've seen it, and then it will be Sanchez's to lose. So I think it's going to be very much down to which one of them earns that starting spot. I think Kepa starts against Liverpool, and from there, we'll see how it develops. But I think that they're pretty similar level keepers, really. One slightly better with the ball, and one slightly better at like saving long shots. He's a bit taller. I think Kepa's probably a bit better at close range. Like his reflexes and things. So it offers a bit of everything. It's going to be interesting. But the main thing, hopefully, is it, like Pies said, is maybe it knocks. We've done them a favour, so maybe it knocks a little bit off the Caicedo deal. I've been saying for a few weeks, if we get Caicedo and Sanchez for around 110, 115 million, I think we all walk away fairly happy with how long this has dragged on.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. It's a weird one because obviously the other Premier League goalkeeper that we were linked with is Raya, who now seems to be going to Arsenal, but going for, well, roughly double the money. So do I think Raya is double as good as Sanchez? Absolutely no chance. Do I think either of them is really better than Kepa? I personally don't think so. Hence why I'm reasonably happy with Sanchez. Now, would I prefer 15 million than 20, potentially 25? And having a sell-on clause, which I find a bit... How can you have add-ons and the sell-on clause? But anyway, if it's like competition, like I'm a bit like Pies, but I think you should have a number 1 and a number 2 goalkeeper just because that gives a bit of stability, because I don't think it's ideal that as soon as a goalie makes a mistake, he's going to be worried about his starting spot, because I think that will make goalies hesitate when it's like on the edge. Do I come? Do I stay? In terms of for a ball or whatever. I think if that mistake losing your spot looms over them, that's not ideal. But we can't say fully yet whether Poch is even going to do that. So from my perspective, it's a weird one because you spoke about there in terms of how Kepa is maybe a bit more error prone, but then at the same time, sure, we all know that Sanchez lost his spot because Brighton lost their goalkeeping coach and he had some sort of issue with that. I still find that a bit strange. Yeah, sure, we have that goalkeeping coach, but what happens if we get rid of that goalkeeping coach? Will he kick off for us as well? Like, I thought we do all this due diligence now to sign all the right characters and everything. He literally just lost his starting spot for kicking off. Surely that's not usually the type of character you'd want to bring in. So I don't really know about that one. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe it never becomes an issue for us. Maybe it does. We can only really judge it then, I guess. But what I've read from a few Brighton people is that Steely, obviously the guy that in the end replaced Sanchez, they're probably both roughly as good as each other with the ball at their feet. But apparently De Zerbi said or thought that Steely's a bit more consistent and less error prone. So I don't know how error prone Sanchez is, but if Steely is less so, then where does Sanchez fall? I don't know. Also, someone told me apparently stats, I haven't seen those stats, but apparently stats prove that even though he's 6'6" tall, so massive, he's not actually that good at collecting crosses, which I'm like, what's the whole point in you being tall then? Imagine Courtois wasn't good at picking up crosses. Then he's just bad that he's so tall because it takes him too long to get to shots on the floor. So I don't really know. But yeah, I'm all right with it. Mendy has gone. Slonina went on loan. We needed a goalie. And I guess I'm more happy with getting someone like Sanchez if he's the backup than if we got some dead championship keeper that no one's ever heard of and is really bad. Do you know what I mean? So I guess it's better in that sense. Pies, anything that you would like to still add to what myself and Conor have said? Like I say, it's a... What do you make of this? Like, obviously, he lost this spot because of some sort of issues in the background. No one is really seemingly 100% clear about the details. We know the goalkeeping coach left and then some issues arose. But why aren't Chelsea or why aren't fans concerned that the same thing can happen to us? Because it's not like, that's a guarantee we won't get rid of that goalkeeping coach also in the next, look at all the coaches we've changed over the last 12 months. So, like, there's every chance we change that one as well, though. So then what happens?
Yeah, maybe. I think as well with Ben Roberts, he actually was given a new role. He's just actually leading the Strasbourg and Chelsea department now for goalkeepers. I'm not sure if he's still going to be coaching on match day because I think we have.
Has anyone told Sanchez about that?
I know he's played up to obviously the whole reason why we signed him is because Ben Roberts is go get him sort of thing. But if he's not on match day, then I don't really see the point. But I mean, we'll see on that. But yeah, if there's anyone that can bring the confidence and performances out of him, is definitely Ben Roberts. You know, you just seen that. And the one thing I would say as well is like I just out of interest, a lot of the time I just take no notice of it because rival fans just they just say any signing shit. You know, I do the same pretty much sometimes. When when a rival club signs someone, but
Yeah, of course.
I was actually quite surprised. Like I was reading some of the quotes to Ornstein and Ornstein's tweet, and a lot of them were like, "Actually, it's a decent signing." So,
Brighton fans or other rival fans?
Brighton fans and I remember one of them, AFC James, is quite a big Arsenal account. He said like that's a good signing if he like as long as he don't like mess about. Like when he's on it, he's really good. So I think Chelsea are kind of putting the gamble in that because it's like okay, if you can get back to your best, you're a really solid Premier League goalkeeper, and I think Arsenal fans and Brighton fans and other fans remember his performances against them. Probably that's probably why like it's easier to judge someone who's been in the Premier League, I'd say, than like I didn't want that Ukrainian guy that was playing for Shakhtar personally because I was like, well, he might be a good prospect, but we've got Sanina. Like, are you going to have next year? You're going to have two young goalies. Like, let's get someone in who's actually been in the Premier League, who's performed. If we're going to get a number two, and then let's see what happens next summer. But yeah, I would say though, 20 million to 25 million is a lot of money. Like, it's not in the market, but like for what we are, like for what we're getting in terms of like what we're
Considering
paying.
they wanted to get rid of him.
Yeah, like for what we're paying for right now, I'm like, okay, that's too much. Like I would have gone like 10, 15 or just loaned him. Like, why not loan him? But apparently he's signing a long-term contract as well. So I'm really interested to see if he's going to be a one or a two.
Like, look at these owners, bro. They're not going to give anyone a 2-year contract.
I know, but it's just like, personally, I thought we would loan him and then we would basically have him for this season, see if he's any good. If he's any good, sign him up, sell Kepa the summer after, and then actually go and get a number one and keep Sanchez as a backup. But I don't think that's going to happen. Like Slanina's, I don't know. It's kind of a weird situation.
But I don't think Slanina will be really with the first team for another 3 years, probably. So
what happens if he has an amazing loan though? Like,
for Slanina.
What happens if he just has an amazing loan though in Belgium and like, you know what I mean?
Then we'll give him a Prem loan before he comes to us, I think.
Yeah, I suppose so. I don't know.
Because you wouldn't really want him as a backup for a season, would you? Because then he's just not going to play and that will just slow his development compared to when he's out on loan. Obviously, we don't want to have happen what happened with Courtois, where we loan him to the same place for 3 years. He falls in love there, and 3 years after we start playing him, he all of a sudden forces to move to that place again because his family is there. You don't want that to happen. But otherwise, loans are good for these young goalies, really. I mean, De Gea, Courtois, so many goalies have proved that.
Yeah, what I'd say about this goalkeeper situation is just like, let's see how it plays out. I'd say like I don't really have too many, like I think Sanchez will be good, others don't. At the end of the day, let's just see how he plays for us, and let's see how much he plays as well. Because again, if we spend 20 million on him and he plays like a few games a season, I'm just like, well, why didn't you get him for cheaper then? And again, I think it depends on the Caicedo deal as well. So, yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I think we can reassess it when we see the Caicedo price. If
Yeah.
Caicedo still comes in for 100 million, then you could say that it's a bad deal. But if he comes in for 85, 90, then maybe you can tell that there was something to do with it.
Yeah, exactly. That is the interesting part. I found it initially super interesting that when Ornstein broke the news, I don't know why I didn't put it up on screen before. My apologies. Obviously, this was the first kind of news that we got that it's done. But he didn't mention any numbers. Now, I didn't read the article. Maybe he mentioned numbers in the in
He did
in the
another
article.
tweet.
Sorry?
He did like another tweet after quoting.
Yeah. But then Fabrizio's tweet about the numbers came before Ornstein's second tweet, right? So then we got the numbers from Fabrizio with the £20 million plus 25 in add-ons, plus another 5 in add-ons, I should say. Fabrizio saying here that Caicedo talks about continuing a separate deal. Obviously, we talked about it yesterday, how essentially Independiente have a sell-on clause, really, on Caicedo, which is about 20%. So that's why 20% of the money that we pay Brighton for Caicedo has to go to Independiente. If we somehow find a deal where we pay them a little extra for Sanchez, but then a little less for Caicedo, for us, it's the same money, but Brighton keep more of it. So I guess in that way, they could be more likely to agree to it, if that makes sense, which there is a logic to it. I said this on yesterday's stream already. I don't like that's possible because, yeah, sure, it doesn't impact us now, but what's poor bloody Independiente done to deserve this? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why they negotiated a sell-on clause. They shouldn't get mugged off for this. I'm making the same joke again as I made yesterday. After we're done with Brighton, we call Independiente and send them our lawyers to help them sue Brighton, really. That's what I would do. But yeah, otherwise, I don't really think there's that much more to say about Sanchez. Like Pice has said, let's just wait and see really how it goes. I think it's a bit expensive, but we can only really judge whether it's too expensive once we know the price for Caicedo. So for the time being, it's just like, let's just wait and see. And also, even if you only ask for it from Pice, happy birthday from me as well, Luke. But yeah, I guess the other thing to quickly mention is Tino Livramento has joined Newcastle for £35 million. And we had apparently a sell-on clause of 40%, which is kind of crazy. But that means we get about 40% of that 35 million. So that's another bit of money chucked back in there, I suppose. Still don't really understand why Newcastle decided to buy a right back for £35 million right now. Because, I mean, I understand they need backup to Trippier. I'm aware of that. But when I look at the rest of their squad, and especially their left back, I'm like, surely you should buy a proper left back before you sign a backup right back. But, you know, what do I know? But yeah, so all the best to Tino. You know, I wish he would be here right now. But at the same time, if he was still here, then we'd have 3 ridiculously good right backs, and I wouldn't know what to do with all of them. And I already don't know what I want to do with the 2 that we have, which is a problem, as I called it on Twitter. But we will get to that in a little bit. Let's talk about Chelsea versus Dortmund. Just bring this up from the Chelsea website where we have a few stats and the lineup as well. We'll talk about from like how we lined up and everything in a minute. But I'll start with you, Connor. What did you make? Maybe I should bring the other thing up just to make the lineup a bit more clear to start with. But what did you make of the lineup? Because especially as the game went on and we saw how long everybody stayed on the pitch, other than obviously Nkunku for getting injured, it seems like this is very close to what we're going to start against Liverpool. Now, I'm sure there is the potential for certain changes in there, especially Mudryk obviously coming on earlier than expected, but then did really well while Sterling played the 5th game in a row really badly. And also in the second half, Mudryk actually playing well off the right, which I'm like, well, Sterling hasn't played well anywhere. So even if you want Nkunku in the half-left space, I would rather you put Mudryk on the right than Sterling. But yeah, Connor, what did you make of the team? And, you know, Gallagher in the pivot and Nkunku over Mudryk on their left spot. I understand why with Chile pushing up, but it's not ideal because we want to see Mudryk regularly, don't we? And also Chukwuemeka as the 10 over Nkunku. He got unlucky a few times this preseason. He could have scored a fair few more goals than he has, but he also didn't, which is kind of half the issue we had all of last season. So what do you make of it all?
Yeah, I like the lineup personally. Sterling for me has had a poor preseason. I think everybody's really said that, but so he's the only one that I'd really single out that I didn't. I'd rather have seen Mudryk start and maybe play Mudryk on the left and Nkunku on that right side cutting in. I think the reason he's starting Chukwuemeka in the middle is because usually similar with like Tottenham when he had Eriksen and Dele Alli, he likes to have 2 players that can sort of roam into that number 10. So Chukwuemeka is a natural 10. And then Nkunku from the left or the right, he can still become a 10. He can come inside to do that. So I think that's why he's done that. And then Sterling is playing with the width. Chilwell, Reece at times, providing width. And then Mudryk, when he came on, provided width as well. But also Mudryk was cutting inside a bit in that first half. People didn't realise as much, but he was sort of drifting into that Nkunku like left inside space role in that left 10. And he actually looked okay there. He was playing fine with the ball. I think Mudryk was really good yesterday. I think his final ball was really good. I think it's like you said, when he came on the right and he came and played on the right, his ability to just put like crosses into the box, his crossing, I think is really good. I think his final ball is pretty pinpoint. Like if players start learning where he's going to put that ball, like Jackson and Nkunku, and they get that rhythm with Mudryk, I think you'll see a lot of goals this season where Mudryk beats his man, puts in a cross and we score. Because I think his crossing is top tier.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm happy with it.
No, exactly. I couldn't agree more. I mean, obviously, once Chile had come off, Mudryk took all the corners and free kicks as well. In the end, we scored our equaliser from
those 2 free kicks are excellent.
Eventually from the free kick. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I mean. Like, if you want the half space person on the left-hand side and that doesn't perfectly suit Mudryk, that's okay. Put him on the right then with his pace and even though his left foot crosses aren't bad either, but the right foot is obviously going to be better. If you let him do that from the right, his pace is going to be... No one's going to stop him getting to the byline. If he can then win one cross after the other and someone in the middle is just always going to be there, what's wrong with that? The only thing I've just as you were talking about, Connor, we've not really seen Jackson head the ball much, have we? Like in terms of heading to try and score, not heading in terms of, when there's a long ball or whatever. So that's going to be interesting to see how he is with that, actually, because he's not small, but maybe it was just because we played against Sule and Hummels yesterday and they're both very big. But against those two, he didn't look that big, because I think Pysik was you yesterday in a group chat. You said he reminds you of Drogba, and I'm like, just half the size. Again, that might be because of Sule and Hummels, but it's actually interesting because all of us are really on that Jackson hype train, aren't we? But we've not really seen him head the ball, have we, Pys? But first of all, touch on that, I guess, if you want. But also in general, what did you make of the lineup? What did you make of who played for a long time and this essentially suggesting this is going to be somewhere around the starting 11? I still wouldn't be shocked. We'll see whether Nkunku is fit. If it's just going to be Nkunku instead of Chukwuemeka and then Mudryk off the left, or obviously Madueke if he's fit by then, if he comes in instead of a Sterling or whatever. But still, it's giving us a bit of an idea. The main shocker, I guess, being Chukwuemeka and Gallagher, that those two are starting. I get maybe none of us really expected going into this preseason that those two might be potential starters against Liverpool.
Yeah, on Jackson, I think the heading is actually one of his weaknesses. I think
not surprised if he used to be a winger.
Yeah, I was reading that. Several people were saying that. But yeah, the lineup. I mean, it's funny because you look at it on paper and you think, okay, really good defense, and I think our defending's actually been quite good apart from the Brighton game. Yeah. We've only conceded five? I think 5 goals. So yeah, it's pretty decent. In 5 games, I'm pretty sure, and scored 13, I think now. So I think it's quite good. But yeah, I mean, the one thing I didn't like was that Poch kind of said this. He was hinting at this is kind of like my team in mind. If you've watched Sterling for the past 4 games and he's in your mind for that Liverpool game, you've got something wrong with you. Honestly, he's been absolutely diabolical.
The only problem with the Sterling thing is that because Madueke is missed all of preseason, honestly, didn't really have a real other option other than putting Mudryk on the other side, I guess.
I would 100% start Mudryk. He looks so confident on either side. Chukwuemeka in a 10. I mean, you know what? A lot of people said they've been impressed with him in the preseason. I haven't at all, to be honest with you. I don't think he suits that number 10 role personally. That's just my personal opinion. I think he's much better when he picks the ball up deeper and can drive forwards. But actually saying that, I think him and Nkunku, when they've both played there, it's kind of been a bit of isolation quite a lot. Neither of them have really got into the game in that number 10 position. So obviously Nkunku then went out onto the left, and you watch the last 2 games where Nkunku's played there. How many times he's touched the ball? I bet you it's double at least. He seems so much more involved. And I don't know why that is, whether that's just a system thing or whether it's just, I don't know, maybe neither of them, or they need to learn the role more. But yeah, I'd be a bit worried going into that Liverpool game if Chukwuemeka starts as the 10, to be honest with you. But other than that, I think, Gallagher really, I think I saw some people just because he's, not played terrible doesn't mean he's good. But I think he looks a bit more secure on the ball, he doesn't panic as much. But one thing I did realise last night still was that our build-up is, through the midfield is still not really there. Gallagher was kind of being the one actually to pick up the ball first, and there was moments where I was just watching him he just doesn't really understand the movements and stuff. He's not quite there still. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. Hopefully we can get, another side, and hopefully Caicedo comes into this team. That would be great. But yeah, I mean, it's probably as strong as you're going to get for Liverpool game, to be honest with you. The only other thing I didn't like was that Chilwell was given much more license to go forward than James. I felt James was way too restricted. And I don't know.
You know why that is, though, right? Because James is better on the ball, so it's more secure leaving.
Yeah,
James
I just think though, but James is, he's got an unreal cross on him, and he's good going forward. So I'm if you kind of restrict James, and it's kind of I don't think you get the best qualities out of him. So
yeah.
I
was talking about this yesterday on the stream. Actually, I think it was yesterday where we mentioned that. Was it 2 days? Was it in the stream that you were on after Fulham? I can't remember now, but. It's essentially talking about exactly that obviously we build in a 3, and so far it's been one of the fullbacks staying. In the second half yesterday, we will touch on that, Connor. It was Gallagher, which is kind of mental. But if I'm still crossing my fingers and saying when we've signed Caicedo, and Caicedo can do that, that would, in theory, then allow both fullbacks to push, and then that wouldn't be an issue. But while you have Enzo and Gallagher, that's a bit of an issue. What I find a bit strange is that Santos wasn't used at all yesterday, because I honestly thought if we don't have Caicedo yet, the pivot against Liverpool would be Enzo and Santos, not Enzo and Gallagher. I was honestly surprised that yesterday Gallagher not only started but played the whole game and everything. You were trying to say, go on?
You reckon he's going on loan? Because I thought that, like, do you know what?
Because we need 4 pivot players, and who else is it going to be? Right?
I've got a weird feeling that Santos, like, because we had an offer from a Premier League club for a loan. I got a weird feeling he'll go on loan, and then we'll sign that Tyler Adams, and then it will be like Gallagher.
But even with Tyler Adams, we don't have 4.
No,
I mean, unless you keep
I'm assuming.
Gallagher,
I'm assuming we have Caicedo and Adams as the 6s, then Enzo, Gallagher, and maybe you can drop Chukwuemeka back there as well, because he did say yesterday that Poch said he's going to also vary his role a little bit. So
Chukwuemeka specifically.
Yeah. He said, like, he did an interview. He's like, the managers told me I can either play as a 10 or a bit further back as an 8. So
yeah,
I don't know.
It's still a double pivot, though, isn't it? Like, I know it's like one is more advanced than the other, but they're still both 6s in this system. It's not like 1 6, 1 8. It's
but I think that's what he meant, though, by like the 8 is like just the more, because I mean we don't have an actual 8.
Oh no. What Poch meant, I agree with you. I agree with that. But as in terms of, it just looks like, well, apparently I know Poch really likes him and he's played the most minutes of any player, but the reports are that the ownership are trying to sell Gallagher. If that's what they're trying to do, then Gallagher will eventually probably leave, and that's why I don't think Santos will go on loan.
Yeah, I just found it weird that he didn't play yesterday, like you said. Didn't even come on. I found that weird.
I mean, who knows what would have happened with Mudryk had Nkunku not got injured. But Mario did a whole super chat to tell me to check Simon Phillips' tweet. I will open it in a second, bro. I actually already had it open, but I appreciate you very much for the donation. We will talk about it in just a second. I will give Connor a moment to kind of react to what Pice has been talking about, because you, a few minutes earlier, you described Chukwuemeka in your mind as a natural 10. What do you make of Pice's assessment of Chukwuemeka, that he hasn't been that impressed, but also Pice doesn't really see him really as a 10? For me, Chukwuemeka is just very clearly an 8 with tendencies towards a 10, but he's most certainly not a 6 in my opinion. He just, like, even you can see he doesn't even know how to press properly. Like, you can see when he's chasing after the ball, he doesn't understand how to put his body between the man and the ball, and that's that's my biggest issue with him as a 10, because we keep pressing, and whenever it's down the middle, Chukwuemeka never got the ball, and on the wide areas we got the ball plenty of times. Even Jackson got the ball plenty of times, but when it was Chukwuemeka, he never did. So I don't really know about that one, but I'm sure he can improve on that, right? But what did you make of Pice's assessment in that sense? Because it just seems like fan base is split. It's maybe a strong word here, but it seems like people's opinions are slightly divided in terms of what exactly Chukwuemeka is.
No, in fairness, I didn't. When I said 10, I was more so talking between the 10 and the 6. I do actually think he's an 8, but we don't really play an 8. Like, Enzo is the closest thing to an 8 that we've got, because he's a second 6. Sort of like, if Carney was going to play as a 6, it would be the Enzo side of things rather than the Gallagher, Caicedo when he joins, if he joins, hopefully. But yeah, I think he's been okay in the 10 personally. Like, I agree to an extent that he's a bit more isolated until he comes deeper to get on the ball. But I also think he sometimes, even though it's just like one small touches, the ball will sort of go into him in the 10 and he'll take one touch to set it back to Gallagher or Enzo. But that's a very key touch, because then Gallagher and Enzo are facing forwards and they've got a lot they can then pick the pass. So I think he's quite good at receiving it in between the lines because of his frame, and he's quite good at getting the ball under control, like using his strength. But no, I think he is best when he's driving at players, when he's picking the ball up deep and driving at players, sort of like Ruben Loftus-Cheek was good at, driving through players.
But he's just nowhere near as good at it as Ruben, I must say. Sorry.
No, he's not. But he's also a lot younger than what Ruben is now. And I think he's got
Ruben
that.
Was doing that at 14, I can't lie.
Ruben was a joke at 18, 16, all those age groups. He was ridiculous. But I think he's also got those comparisons to Moussa Dembele for Spurs in the sense of driving through midfield, not in all facets of the game. But I think he'll be one of those players that plays minutes in various areas, like Poch has said. I think you'll see him in the 10 to start with. I think he'll probably start against Liverpool, and then I think he might then go out the side for a few weeks, and then you might see him pop up in the 6 in a few weeks later. I think he'll get minutes, but I think they'll be sporadic. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing as long as he still gets a good amount of minutes and he uses that to sort of progress this season.
Cup games, just start him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, Jose in the chat said here, no news for Kudus. That's kind of what we're still lacking and missing, right? If we're not gonna use Nkunku as the main out and out 10, but essentially because I mean, I guess I can just bring up your tweet about it, Connor. Otherwise, I could just move it around. If I open up this one, you essentially have the left winger or whichever side the fullback doesn't push up comes in as kind of a second 10, and then you have 4 behind the striker with one winger being or one wide player being the fullback, one wide player being the other winger. So basically, you want 2 10s. But the problem is we sold all of the ones we had, so now we don't have any. So now we have Chukwuemeka and Nkunku and no one else. Well, Gallagher theoretically, but obviously he plays double pivot now, shockingly. But yeah, so someone like Kudus, someone like Olis, someone Mason Mount would have been quite good in that. Obviously, no point talking about that, but Mason Mount would have suited this position literally like a glove. But hey, it's what it is now, I guess. But yeah, so we certainly need to fill that position still, which is interesting because, Connor, I completely agree with you with what you said earlier. DM, striker, goalie in kind of that order of priority. But with how many players we sold, it all of a sudden made this 10/winger position arguably more of a priority than the goalkeeper because we all of a sudden don't have enough players. Sure, you can say Chukwuemeka, but if he's definitely not a winger. If he's not even fully a 10, then that doesn't fix the solution. That doesn't fix the problem either, does it? But yeah, so obviously this is kind of how we built up in the first half, as we've done in most of the games so far this preseason, with one of the fullbacks staying deep. In this case, it was Reece James, and one of the fullbacks pushing up to then create the 4 behind the striker, which was Chilwell. And then in the second half, now it looks insane when you do it with Gallagher. It will be Caicedo. And maybe you should have pushed him up a little bit to make it a bit more clear that you're talking in creating possession. But essentially, what you're trying to say is then both fullbacks push, one of the midfielders drops deeper, the 10 kind of comes inside, and then you kind of create in a 3-4-3. But obviously, it's a bit fluid, and either Enzo or Carney push up. I mean, Enzo turned up in the box loads, didn't he? When you think about it, he never got on the end of anything, but he was in the box loads.
There's one point where where I think who was it? Mudryk put one across the box, and he nearly got a touch on it. He was the furthest up the pitch. But yeah, the reason I put Gallagher so deep is because it wasn't. Some people are trying to say that there was times where Gallagher was just in front of the two, but there was actually a lot of the times when he was building up, he was deeper than Colwill and Silva. He was dropping off deep, the deepest man to pick up the ball as a halfback, sort of what Dyer did. Again, this will be Caicedo.
He doesn't want this to be Gallagher, but he doesn't have any.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. He wants to see it in motion, and we only have one more preseason game left, so he's using it to see if it works, and he knows Caicedo or whoever's bought in that area. Hopefully, will be Caicedo's brilliant in first phase build up. He's probably his most underrated asset, in my opinion. Everybody knows he's a brilliant ball winning midfielder, but his actual ability to progress the ball from that back line and into midfield is really top tier. So that would be perfect for him. And then, like you said earlier, it gives Chilwell and Reece that opportunity to both hug the touchline. And then you sort of see those Mudryk, Sterlings, and Nkunku would be perfect in that one of those inside channel roles. So it gives them a bit more fluidity to move around and sort of rotate.
Exactly. And obviously you painted it essentially like this now, with one of them dropping, one of them being here. But the fullbacks could obviously swap it, and Reece kind of becomes inverted, and then one of the wingers stays wide and he kind of fills that role, which already happened at times under Tuchel, obviously. So there is certainly ways in which all of this can be made happen. Someone in the chat is asking about this BBC report, which said Brighton are expecting Caicedo to still be there at the end of the window. You just put in our group chat, it's a brief. Whether it's a brief or not, it's just... That's what every club says before they've sold a player. Obviously, they're then expecting the player to stay.
It hit BBC and Sky Sports at the same time. I'm sure, when this happens, I'm sure something is getting closer, but we'll see. I don't. If it was true, the only news I'll listen to is if everything comes out at once and says Chelsea have pulled out, because then Chelsea would have told everyone that's what's happening. So until that comes out, I don't care about anything that they say.
Yeah, no, I do agree. Pete, yes, unfortunately, Madueke has had some sort of calf injury, was it? Some sort of muscle issue. He was in the US. He was also already in training, but wasn't quite ready to feature, unfortunately for him. Not sure if that's then going to be enough match sharpness and everything else. Oh, he's at a hamstring, Bobby, fair play. Not sure if that's going to be enough then to be fit, get him fit for the Liverpool game, maybe on the bench, but difficult to judge, I suppose. What else have I heard here? Bobby says maybe Maatsen can do it. It looked good when he came on last night. I'm still not 100% sure what I want to make of Maatsen because he's been used left, right, middle. Don't really know still what I make of that. But what have you made, Pys, of the whole, on the one hand, we kind of keep 3 defenders back, one of which being the fullback, only 1 attacks. And then in the second half, it was one of the midfielders. Now, again, because it was Gallagher, not ideal, but it still showed you the general idea, which I prefer it this way than making one of our fullbacks stay back. Now, if Cucurella, and, we'll touch on him in a minute a little bit more as well, but if Cucurella was one of the fullbacks to play, then I guess doing it like this with obviously the left side staying makes sense. But if you have Reece and Chile starting, it's almost a waste to not let them both attack. You kind of touched on it earlier already anyway, but yeah. I assume you agree with that.
I hope that if we sign Caicedo, he allows James to go forward more, because at the moment I think having James back, I think is more like a transition threat. It's kind of like he's probably thinking about the transitions coming the other way, and obviously James, if you push both fullbacks forward, then maybe you get caught out of the back a little bit more. But if you've got someone better defensively, like an actual defensive midfielder, which Gallagher isn't, then maybe you can give both a bit of license. So that's what I hope will happen.
Maybe it's also still partly making sure Reece doesn't overdo it with running.
Yeah.
Could also be the case, absolutely. Connor, are you adamant that Carney dropped quite this deep when in the build-up, or could Carney also have kind of been in this area? Because that's the only thing I'm like, was Carney quite this deep, like fully next to Enzo? That's the only thing I'm not 100% sure on.
In the second half, when the ball was in the back 3, Carney would sort of drop into that slot, and then when it surpassed that first phase, so sort of when we got into the second half, then he'd push into the 10 and Enzo would be more as the 8, and then Gallagher would have also pushed up. So then it sort of looked like a 2 centre-backs, and then everybody else was sort of in that second phase of build-up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe I would just show that on screen quickly so people understand what we're essentially trying to say. So Gallagher kind of dropping in between the centre-backs in build-up. You have obviously these coming a bit central in Sterling, and then you have the fullbacks pushing up. And then you have Chukwuemeka and kind of Enzo in this around the centre circle area. But this is when the ball is here. Like, let's pretend Gallagher is the ball, right? As soon as the ball goes up, then Gallagher pushes up, Chukwuemeka pushes up, then it kind of spreads out a little bit more again. And then you kind of just have 2 centre-backs waiting with one just hovering there just in case of a transition, which essentially is happening. I hope everybody's following, but I think I've explained that all right. But yeah, I would certainly prefer it if one of the midfielders does that rather than one of the fullbacks, because to me you need one of the midfielders to stay anyway, because you try to stop the transition further away from the defenders. So if you leave the fullback and then you have the midfielders here, then there is always this gap, which was always the issue between Jorginho and the midfielders. Now, obviously, the midfielders now are quicker than Jorginho, so that gap will be lesser. But even last season with Enzo, that was constantly the problem. So I prefer it when it's a midfielder rather than it being a fullback. But at the end of the day, we will only have a final conclusion, I think, on how we're going to play that once we have that midfielder signed, which ideally will be Caicedo. I would like to talk about a few individuals that maybe haven't got quite as much note just yet. I guess before, if we're going to talk individuals, let's talk that potential injury update on Christopher Nkunku. Through Jacob Steinberg, he said, although there is optimism Christopher Nkunku has not sustained any serious damage to his left knee, it is unclear whether he will be fit to face Liverpool on August 13th. So really, it's another bit that wasn't really... that wasn't really an update. Shocker. They've just not done a scan yet. It's as simple as that. It was with the ice pack. Then they travel back to London, and he's probably going to do a scan tomorrow to find out what exactly the situation is. Essentially, that's what I take this as. But obviously, if either of you want to butt in on that, please do. But otherwise, I wanted to touch on kind of the partnership of Chilwell and Thiago Silva, because I thought that worked wonderfully well. Really, really well. And we were talking about this yesterday on stream, because it seems like a lot of people are expecting Thiago Silva not to play that much this season. And I just don't really understand where this has come from, because last season, Thiago Silva was 38. He's still 38 now until September. He played every game last season and he was fit. Why would you all of a sudden not? That to me just doesn't make any sense. I understand, sure, we played a lot of back three last season, which maybe helps him a little bit. But, it's still Thiago Silva. Yeah, he maybe has a little bit of lack of pace in certain scenarios, but he has better everything else in every other aspect of the football game. So I still expect Thiago Silva to play more often than not while fit. But him and Colwill together, just beautiful, really. Just absolutely beautiful. The only big shame was that Colwill, especially that first one, the second one was a bit more difficult with him being left-footed, but essentially should have scored 2 goals. But especially the first one was an absolute sitter. So, but yeah, Pais, did you like their partnership as well yesterday? I certainly did.
Yeah, I didn't like him missing 2 open goals, but other than that, he was really good. Yeah, Cole, I think he's just great to get him locked down as well. 6 years. I didn't think he would leave, but you never know.
7 even.
I didn't know it. What?
7 even. 6 plus 1, isn't it?
Yeah, 6 plus 1. Yeah. I just say 6 because you never know if that plus 1's guaranteed or not. I think it's an option, but yeah, I like the partnership. I thought Silva was just so good. Like, honestly, I don't know how our fans dislike Silva. Like, some people just try and be edgy and are like, "Oh, Silva's 39, he's washed." But that pass he played for Jackson as well yesterday, by the way, was just outrageous. Like, it was so effortless, like just completely over the top of the defense. I was convinced it was offside, but it couldn't be more onside.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it worked really well, and I think the chemistry is already sort of flowing between them two. And yeah, I'm glad to hear Cole was saying in his interview as well, like, he's going to ask Silva for any like tips or anything when he needs them, and you couldn't ask for a better person really to learn off than Thiago Silva. He's one of the most legendary centre backs in the game. So yeah.
No, exactly. I couldn't agree more. And what I would also say is, as much as obviously Colwill will learn from Thiago Silva, I actually think Thiago Silva will benefit from having Colwill next to him, because so far in the last couple of seasons, with obviously the players he's played against, I guess it improved a little bit when Badiashile came in. But before that, whenever we've kind of played from the back after Christensen left, the main guy that played it out from the back was always Silva. And Silva has passing in him, as you touched on with that example for Jackson, especially the long ranger one. The only thing I sometimes criticized is maybe a strong word, but had my issues with sometimes with Silva is that I thought he was a bit slow in that build-up passing, because sometimes to break lines, you need to not wait around for half an hour until you finally play the pass. You need to get it going before the opposition has their pressing shape in perfection. And Colwill is so good at that. First of all, he takes some responsibility off Silva of doing that, which makes, in my opinion, will make Silva look better. But also, I know Silva is nearly 39 years old and has experienced everything there is in the game. But having a 20-year-old next to you that is so comfortable and confident at passing it out quickly will also make Thiago Silva more likely to do that, in my opinion, because if the guy next to you does it, you're going to do it. Doesn't matter if the guy next to you is 20 years younger than you. If he does it and doesn't make mistakes with it, you're going to do it as well. But if obviously all the team around you is constantly passing slowly, no matter how good you are, you're going to get dragged into that vibe. And Colwill isn't, because Colwill, that's just his character to play like that. So I think as weird as that sounds, Colwill will actually even make Thiago Silva better in a weird way. Do you think I'm stretching a little bit with that, Connor, or do you see where I'm coming from with that?
I get what you mean. I think they also complement each other very well, because they're both so assured on the ball. They read the game really well. They're not the type of defenders. They don't rely on their sort of like physical aspects of the game as much as Colwill has those. He is a unit, and he's good in the air and he's strong. But someone like Fofana, for example, is maybe less about his reading of the game and more about his speed, his power, his ability to like win those 1v1 duels. Whereas I think Colwill and Silva, you saw it yesterday, they were just comfortable. They were just, at all times, they read everything that was pretty much going to happen. If it wasn't Silva, it was Colwill. There was just, everything just looked really calm, and it was just very nice to see. And the other thing with them both is they're both very good at playing those long balls. Like you said, I think Cole was a little bit better at playing those sort of in between the line balls quickly into midfield.
Especially on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. But I think long range, I think they're both very, very good. Like we saw it with Silva to Jackson. Colwell's been doing it pretty much every game he's played for us in pre-season, and we saw it all last year at Brighton. And Poch really, he likes to be able to go vertical at times with the likes of Mudryk, Jackson, getting that ball over the top and spinning defenders' heads. And that's something he did with Tottenham with Alderweireld and Vertonghen. They were both very well known for their long passing, especially Alderweireld. They'd often sort of switch it from short passing, 1-2s in and around the midfield, and then all of a sudden Alderweireld will pluck a ball over the top and Tottenham were gone. So I think that's something that Pochettino really likes to do. And these two centre-backs are perfect for it.
Fair play, fair play. Big up the raid from Lewis, by the way. Shout out everyone that is joining now. Conor, I will actually stick with you. Coming to the fullbacks, what did you make of both Chile and James yesterday? And then I also want to come to, as I called it in my tweet, the James and Gusto problem. And when I say the James and Gusto problem, it's not a problem. The problem is that they're both so good that I kind of want both of them in the team, but they're not. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we're trying to sign Caicedo, but maybe we should just put Reece James in midfield just because Gusto is so good at right back. It's almost a waste to not play him.
Yeah. So I'll start with the first point.
Yeah,
I'll just say Chilwell and James. I think they're brilliant. I think in our Champions League run they're unreal, obviously, and I think when they're both playing well, they are massive for Chelsea, and they're also now the two longest serving with Kepa, so they are like experience in this team essentially.
Yeah.
Obviously, James being captain last night, that was brilliant to see as well.
Yeah.
With Silva on the pitch. But I think the only thing that I worry slightly about with this system is that they don't overly suit playing together in this system unless the Caicedo, like that second rotation we spoke about, where the midfielder drops in, because Chilwell's not very good. Like he has actually done it in pre-season. Poch has tried to view him like if he could do that left centre back role in build up.
And I'm sure they all could. Like I'm sure he could also get better at it if he does it more and more, but it's not ideal, is it?
Yeah, exactly. He's not as comfortable doing it as like Cucurella, for example.
Yeah.
But then Chilwell's a much better player than Cucurella. So
yeah.
And then James, like we've spoke about as well, when he does it, he's perfectly good at it. He's brilliant at that right centre back role, but it's wasting what you've got in James, which is an elite crosser from any area of the pitch, and you want to use his attacking outlets as much as possible.
And also a physical presence higher up the pitch, which is useful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's my only gripe with it is that you don't get the best out of both of them because they're both probably better going forwards. Like James is just as good at defending, but you don't want to waste his going forward talent. So that's my only thing. But I think they were both good yesterday. I think there was no real issues on my end for them two. I think they both played well. And then what was the second thing we said? It was James and Gusto. Yeah. So on that one, I agree with like they're both brilliant. I think Gusto's been really good pre-season. His one-on-one defending is what's really impressed me. Like Matoma, he locked Matoma up for that 45 minutes at least. Was it 45 or 60 that he played that game? But he was brilliant. And then even last night when he came on for the last part of the game, he had a few good 1v1 defensive actions. But the only thing I would say with James is like leaving Caicedo, for example, and having James like in that central midfield role is I don't necessarily agree with the less strenuous part of the game aspect that a lot of people say for him, because if you're going to be in there with Enzo, the job is going to be that like covering a lot of ground.
He would arguably be better at doing what Enzo does. Not better than Enzo, but for Reece James, he's more suited to the Enzo role. Yeah,
exactly. I wouldn't want them two in there together. Not that it wouldn't work, but I just think that the profile we're looking at right now, Caicedo, is more of a he eats up ground. Like he and even like Gallagher has done next to Enzo, like they're in there to be workhorses and like win the ball back in all areas of the pitch. For James, he can do that, but it's not gonna. A lot of people saying it might help him not get as injured as much because it'll be less on his body. But if he's going to do the Caicedo role, it would be just as much on his body because he's got to eat up ground all over the middle of the park. So
yeah, it is. Maybe it's a little bit less sprinting though. Like it's in terms of distance, it's probably more. No, it's not probably. It's definitely more because midfielders definitely cover the most distance. But there is probably less yards covered in sprint than it is at fullback. That's the only thing I would say.
Yeah. Like again, it would definitely work, and we've seen James playing that for Wigan, and he was brilliant there. And we know he's so good on the ball that he could easily do it. But I do think he'd be better in there with a Caicedo if Enzo was rested, for example, than to be that defensive mid as much as he could do it. But yeah, I
personally fully agree with you. Hey, I mean, in my books, you could even play James as kind of like the right winger that comes inside when the right fullback pushes up, and if like
He's good enough to play
But
anywhere,
if
realistically.
this was James, and imagine James here, sometimes being wide, sometimes here, the amount of goals the guy would get and the amount more goals we would get from shooting from range. Because obviously when he's fucking right back, let alone right centre back, he doesn't get the opportunity to shoot and score much. Even when he was right wing back, he's always out here. You're less likely to score other than from when you're at the end of a cross from this position. But if he played here, James would probably get you 10 goals a season. Do you know what I mean? So again, I'm not saying this is what we necessarily should do, and I bring you in on this now as well, Pys. As much as it's obviously a good problem to have, and it's great that we have two such good right backs as we do with Reece James and Malo Gusto, and as much as obviously fingers crossed and touch wood it doesn't happen, Reece James will probably miss part of the season again with injury. It's just, we need to be realistic as well. And then it's going to be wonderful that we have Gusto. But when both are fit, it genuinely feels like a bit of a waste not to have both on the pitch, especially while I have to watch Gallagher and Sterling, be on the pitch. When I'm like, I could have James and Gusto, but instead I have Gallagher and Sterling. And I shouldn't even be critical of Gallagher because the part of games I've seen until the Fulham and Dortmund game, he was okay as well. And in particular yesterday, I actually thought it was pretty good. Now, you can say the build-up wasn't as smooth and quick as you would have liked, but to put that all on Gallagher, that's just looking for a scapegoat now, because there's no guarantee that if you just had someone else in Gallagher, that everything would have just been perfect all of a sudden. That's not quite how it works. Obviously, the transition and getting the ball through the opponent is the most difficult part about football. So that's also because we have a completely new team with a new manager. We're in the middle of preseason. That's the part that's going to struggle the most, no matter who the players are. Obviously, maybe a little bit more so with Gallagher on the team, but I still don't like how people are trying to put the reason why we're not playing so nicely through midfield is because Gallagher's playing. It's not that simple, in my opinion. But James, Pys, what do you make of this James and Gusto problem? Do you think we should at all consider somehow finding a way to put both in the team? Or do you disagree with that and are just be happy that you have two good right backs?
Probably the latter at the moment, but I would say I'm predicting as the season goes on, Chelsea fans are going to get journalists to ask Pochettino in press conferences Gusto, they'll get them to, word it as if they'll basically ask Pochettino the question. I think going into the season, we'll just see James play. But if James stays injury free, I think, there'll be some questions asked.
Malo Gusto will hand in a transfer request in January if James doesn't get injured.
But I think, they'll ask Pochettino. It'll be like an ongoing, not problem, but I guess it is kind of a problem for the manager, but you know what I mean? I do think
Gusto.
I honestly, Gusto has been so good, man. He's absolutely rapid as well. And I don't want to say he's too good to be on the bench because, look at City's depth, but he should be starting, honestly, but it's really hard when you've got Reece James. I don't know. I think it will be an ongoing thing going through the season. Maybe Pochettino will try something different, maybe, a few weeks or midway into the season or something, but I don't think it's too much of a headache for now. I would still play James, of course, but, Gusto is very, very good as well. And I remember when we signed him, we agreed a fee. Back in my mind, I was thinking, this guy's not a backup. He could be a star for us. So it's what's good about this is this is one of the rare times we've actually had this. We've had so much shit recruitment over the years where we've just had a starter and then the backups might be good, but he's not
compare right back to goalies.
Honestly, Gusto could start over Reece James against Liverpool, and I don't think you would see much of a difference. I think Gusto would play really, really well. So that's a really good problem for Pochettino to have. And Gusto signed a very long-term contract, so they must have some sort of plan for him long-term because he's not just going to be a backup.
Although they have signed him before they ever had Poch, so who knows?
But I don't think they'd be that stupid to go here's I don't know what contract he's on, but isn't it a 7 or 8 year contract?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh yeah, your backup for Reece James for 8 years. Maybe
because Reece is literally 23, so
unlucky. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Maybe something's being planned for long term. Maybe he becomes a left back. I don't know, but. Yeah. I just find it strange.
I don't like wrong-footed fullbacks personally.
No, I
Aspie did it, but that was Jose ball. Now we're trying to play attacking.
Yeah, I don't, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
it could be. It's a good problem.
Fair play. it is a good problem. It can become a bad problem, but it all depends on Reece's injuries. Do you know what I mean? Maybe that's also why they did. Let's sign a proper good right back up, because just in case Reece misses half the season again, we're not screwed again, which I totally understand from their perspective. Chris here says, it's just happy we have two good right backs. Not a big fan of trying untested things this early in the season. On the one hand, I agree. On the other hand, don't forget that Reece James played the majority of the season in the double pivot for Wigan when he was on loan there, made the championship team of the season. And that was literally the season that brought him from there, he, came into Lampard's Chelsea and, was injured at the beginning of the season, but then made his name in the Chelsea first team from playing 3/4 of the season in a double pivot. So Reece James has played in midfield before, not in the Premier League, sure, but still at a good championship team. So, it's not, I wouldn't say it's completely untested. And yeah, with Reece James is that good. You could put Reece James up front and he'd be better than most other players. Just because of how good Reece James is, it doesn't matter where you put him. He'd be better than most other players in any position other than goalkeeper, probably. But yeah, let's get into the midfield. I guess we kind of touched on Gallagher and Enzo already to some extent, in particular Gallagher. But what have you made of Enzo, Pais? Because I've seen a few people say, Enzo's played like a £40 million player, not a €120 million player. What have you made of that? I thought yesterday was certainly his best game that I've seen from him. Again, I didn't manage to see all of the other games before Fulham. But yeah, yesterday was certainly more closer to what I'm used to from him, but he still plays a few too many misplaced passes or underhit passes, overhit passes, bouncing more than they need to passes that make it more difficult to control for the teammate. But what did you make of Enzo this preseason? And true, actually. If there was a time to test Reece James in different position, it would have been now. It's true, but we didn't. But yeah, Pais, on Enzo in particular, but also Gallagher, I suppose, they'll pivot in general.
It's definitely been worse than last season, but it's pre-season. It's pre-season. He probably had his best game on the worst pitch out of all of them yesterday, so it doesn't really make sense, to be honest. I think he looks like a little bit like, when he receives the ball, I don't think he's been as sharp. There was a moment yesterday where he received the ball and he almost dribbled in a circle and then didn't know who to pass to. It was quite funny. I was like, oh no, but
yeah, he doesn't have Kovacic and Kante and he never had Jorginho, I guess. But he doesn't have those players next to him anymore that will play a part.
And also, I was just going to say, he's not really, he's been playing with different people each game since he's got back.
Yeah. And, not even just since he's got back, since he's come to the club, really.
Yeah, but I just don't see the point in, these, because I've seen them too, on Twitter, well, what's the point going to Enzo? He's signed a 9-year contract. Bro's in prison. What's the point going at him in prison? What the hell? Honestly. What does that do for you? Where does that get you?
To support him to make sure he plays a £200 million.
We all know he's a very good player. It's I don't know, typical Twitter, but
yeah. That one pass he played to Sterling was gorgeous as well yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, a bit like that assist to Havertz against Leicester last season.
But yeah, no, he's not been great in pre-season. I'm not gonna lie, but
not been awful either. I think that's important to mention too.
It's I know we have to judge on the games, but long term, guys, come on, he's in prison.
Especially yesterday with that pitch, which you can't even call a pitch. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly, it's crazy. But I will say though, I was very disappointed he didn't score that chance against it Fulham?
Especially the rebound for me, because I'm bro, come on. That was literally 2-3 yards of empty goal, and you just fell over your own feet and put it in the side net.
I'm just surprised, he shot straight at the keeper. It was so easy to just put it in the other corner, but he's got to improve on that as well, though, because I think he wants to play more attacking, but he does he's got good long range shooting, but actual finishing, I'm not sure if he's actually that good. So I mean, we'll see.
He can learn. He's only 22, I guess. The only thing before I let Connor speak on the midfield. The only thing I would like, and someone else said it earlier, this whole drop in the midfielder between the centre backs for build up to let both fullbacks push would have been better if you did it with Enzo rather than Gallagher. Now, first of all, I absolutely agree. Second of all, I'm 100% sure Pochettino also agrees with that. But why I like it is because that's what Lampard and Potter did last season. Oh, we don't have another DM? All right, we need to put Enzo there. Okay, I get it because it was competitive seasons, but Poch is aware, no, he wants to play Enzo as the kind of more advanced of the double pivot, the kind of 8 of the double pivot, not the one that constantly sits, because then you get the most out of Enzo, both creatively, offensively, in long shots every now and again, but also as a passing option because he understands space and makes himself available. If you have then Caicedo here and Enzo, make sure he's always able to be passed to, that allows us to beat presses so much more easily. Obviously, I guess it could be the other way around, but you want Enzo in and around the final third when we get into the final third because you want this creativity. So I really rated from Poch that even though he had Gallagher next to him, he was like, nah, I'm not dropping Enzo deep. I'm dropping Gallagher deep so Enzo can get used to this role. And I like it. I'm a big fan of that because that's what it's going to be as the season goes on. Whether that's hopefully, obviously, Caicedo or someone else, it's not going to be Gallagher all the time next to him, that's for sure. But yeah,
I think Vic's got a point in the chat as well. Like he said, like you got to remember, like Enzo did join the preseason. Like the other players had like 2 whole weeks at Cobham, right, where they were just doing great running. That's what Chilwell said anyway. It was like we just did so much running. Sterling said the same. So like he made it like he's probably like a yard or so of fitness behind them. So I think he's got a good point there.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good point. Absolutely.
And it's very hot in the US as well.
Yeah,
very, very hot.
It is very hot. To be honest, it's hot everywhere but in the UK, it seems.
Yeah.
But Conor, your thoughts, midfield too, also in terms of how Enzo has done. Do you agree with my point that even though it was Gallagher, it's still good that he kept Enzo in that role, that he will play in the season rather than, it's with Gallagher now, so I have to make Enzo drop?
Yeah, I think the other thing to note is when you put Enzo into that gap, it's better for build-up. But if the ball breaks, it's worse because if that ball does get lost in that transition, you've then got Enzo who's not great at recovering the ball. Like he's okay stationary recovering the ball. Like he'll make like interceptions and stuff by reading the game, similar to what Jorginho did. But once that ball's past him, he's not going to catch it. Whereas when you have Gallagher there or hopefully Caicedo, that's somebody who they're better at recovering the ball if it does break. So that's why you'd want them deeper than him. But then also, like you say, when Enzo's further up the pitch. Well, it happened, didn't it, against Dortmund? Enzo was the furthest man back.
No, absolutely. But they didn't figure out, maybe I shouldn't play Enzo there all the time.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, he was the furthest man back from that set piece against Dortmund, and it cost us. So, But, yeah, I think Enzo's actually been not great pre-season, and Enzo's quite easily my favourite player at Chelsea at the minute. So, like, to say that is, like, there's a reason to it. But not, again, like you said, I don't think he's been awful, but I think, and the fact that he joined up late and he's played like a few 45s, then he's played yesterday was like the full game. But just a few touches, just a little bit like a yard off the pace, really. That was pretty much bang on. I think he was just not as sharp as we were used to seeing him last season. I think he played so many minutes last season and then he only just had a break. It's probably going to take him a few weeks to get back into that rhythm and find that sharpness. But once he's there, he's one of the least players that I'm worried about because he's got so much actual like quality on the ball and ability that I just don't have any issues with him at all. I think he's just going to be brilliant for us, like for the whole prison sentence. So
yeah, exactly.
There's no issue with him.
What did you kind of make of the fact that Santos didn't come on at all yesterday? Did that surprise you? Because like again, why like Gallagher, like I say, he did okay, but he didn't, or he did even good yesterday, I could say. But was it good enough that I'm like, yeah, he needs to play the whole game and Santos can't come on instead of him? I'm not sure about that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I found that weird because I thought Santos would start next to Enzo. I thought that was going to be the pivot yesterday. And I also thought that would be the pivot against Liverpool. But now I'm pretty sure it'll be Gallagher and Enzo again against Liverpool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's surprising me. I don't know whether maybe Pys was onto something. Maybe he does get loaned. Not that I want him to, and not that I agree that he should, because we don't have anywhere near enough depth to be loaning him out at this point.
I mean, if Gallagher stays, I guess I could see it as possible. But if Gallagher leaves,
only if we sign someone as well, like even with Gallagher, like the next,
we definitely will sign someone. Hopefully, Caicedo, but we will definitely sign someone.
then maybe he goes out on loan. But I did find it strange that he didn't come on.
Because imagine Caicedo and Tyler Adams. Then you could, I guess, there's a debate: does Gallagher stay? Does Santos stay? Does Ugochukwu stay? I guess you then have 3 options along with Enzo, Caicedo, and Adams. But who knows how real this Adams thing is, and who knows if it's because he's so much worse than Caicedo that I'm like, well, it has to be regardless of Caicedo. It cannot be an alternative. So that's why in my mind, maybe because he's cheap, he's American. You know, if he plays for us a little bit, we can probably sell him on for 40 if he's not that good in a couple of years. Because you're not going to get a player that's like Adams for 20 million usually. That's just because Leeds got relegated. You were trying to say, sorry?
I was just saying as well, he's a national team captain. So like, as much as he's young, he adds leadership. There is that aspect.
Yeah.
Like,
and he's 24, not 19. So
yeah.
And I know you like your what is it, the stat graph where it's got the percentiles, Connor?
Yeah.
And Alan was in 99% for tackles, so
he does love a tackle, but to be honest, that's also Leeds, to be fair, because I mean, Leeds do nothing but tackle because they never have the ball, so they can only tackle. Do you know what I mean? Especially with Jesse Marsch, it was just running and tackle. It's like Cucurella, really. Cucurella, I literally said this yesterday. Cucurella is literally a monthly subscription on getting unlucky. Like, I know that obviously in the end we conceded from the corner, but how that, like, because he actually made a good tackle, but the ball that he tackled ran straight into the path of the Dortmund attack, and it was through on goal with no Chelsea defender anywhere near to be seen. That's not Cucurella doing anything bad. That's just getting unlucky. He tackled the ball and it fell directly to a Dortmund player 30 yards away. Like, honestly, the guy, let the man catch a break, man. If building out from the back is such a good player, but the lack of pace, he just looks so rash. He just reminds me of Tingle Tongue Bob the whole time, and I know it's the hair, but you know, also character-wise, he seems mental, like Tingle Tongue Bob when he plays football. But let's do the whole attack in one go. No need to do the three behind Jackson separately. I need to, and I want to start with Raheem Sterling. He's now done 5 games. He's been dreadful in every single one of them. He had, was it 1 successful take on yesterday and 5, or was it just 5 unsuccessful ones? Whatever it was. I mean, Madueke against Bournemouth had like 11 successful ones by himself. Sterling didn't even have that in 5 games combined. He barely had 1, it feels like. Like, honestly, what does he do right? But the problem is we still use him so much. Like, the other players still clearly think of him as this great player because they always give him the ball in important positions and moments. But then he's just out there in the middle of nowhere. His crossing isn't good. That finish he attempted was dreadful. Sure, Mudryk should have made the run to the far post and maybe Sterling wouldn't have shot but crossed. Fair enough. But still, you're Raheem Sterling. You're only Messi has scored more goals for Pep Guardiola than Raheem Sterling has. And he plays for us literally like a poor man's Callum Hudson-Odoi. Like, you play Callum Hudson-Odoi right now and he'd be better than Sterling has been this preseason. And that's not a joke. That is a fact. And it's the dude. Like, we've been on preseason, what, how long? 3-4 weeks? The dude earns 325k a week, mind you. Like, he's earned over £1 million for being shit for a whole preseason. Like, how is that a thing? Like, it's just absolutely outrageous how dreadful he is. And I can't really accept it, if I'm being perfectly honest, because mentality-wise, and what we've heard, like, he's apparently changed his whole diet, got himself a personal dietitian or whatever, like to kind of perform better or whatever. But, well, the results haven't exactly shown, have they? Like, he looks lazy. He looks scared to take people on. He looks not really in tune with anybody else. Everybody else looks pretty in tune with each other, but Sterling looks to be like the odd one out every time. It's just very, very odd. But what's arguably even more odd than Sterling being bad is the manager constantly playing him. And I don't understand why this constantly happens with various different managers, how they keep playing players that are playing badly. Like, why do you do that? I understand he's experienced and older, but if he's worse, surely that matters more than experience. It really annoys me. Conor, I'm going to go with you first, but what have you made of this? I understand if Madueke was here, then Sterling would have played less, but it's still really frustrating to me. Like, how is this a thing? I've never even seen Mudryk play on the right. Plays it for 10 minutes and he did more than Sterling did in 5 games there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's been the one that you can point out in this preseason and fully say, like, even like more so than Cucurella for me, that you can just point out and say that he's been poor. His decision making's been slow. He's had the ball in good positions in the final third and he's made the wrong decisions. And he looks his decision making is just too slow in that, like, he's taken 2-3 seconds too long to make something happen. The one thing I would say is I don't think he's looked lazy. I think he has actually. I think you can see fitness wise he's been up to scratch. I think yesterday he was pressing fairly well, and there was a few times where the ball broke. He lost himself.
When I say lazy, I've more meant when there's like loose balls or he doesn't really control a ball as well as he should or whatever. He doesn't try as hard as I think he could to keep that ball or to get to that ball. Rather than that he doesn't press. I agree with you on that, actually.
Yeah.
But it's just these weird moments where I'm like, you are fast as shit. Like, maybe not as fast as Mudryk, but you're still fast. Like, run after the fucking ball, man.
Yeah, he's been disappointing. Like, there was that one yesterday, I remember him, he lost the ball and he tracked basically back to the centre-backs and won the ball back. and then
true.
then he got it back and then lost it again. So
yeah,
it's
so that was
the
literally
same
when I put
issue.
in our group chat. Sorry to keep mentioning that, Conor, when you're not in that group chat, but when I mentioned in our group chat, like, Sterling did that good because 5 minutes earlier I said, does Sterling do ever anything useful? And then he did, so I thought I'd mention it. But yeah, other than that, I can't really remember him doing anything good other than that moment you just mentioned. But what would you do with Sterling now then? I mean, we're not really going to be able to sell him because I don't like, obviously all the guys that are going to Saudi Arabia, not all of them, but a lot of them are Muslim. So they have that kind of attraction to that country of Saudi Arabia because obviously Mecca is in Saudi Arabia, like literally the I'm no expert on all of Islam, but Mecca is obviously the holy place, I guess. Sterling's Christian. That's not going to be a pull for him, is it? Like, so, and no one else is going to even get close to matching the wages we're giving him. So realistically, we're stuck with him. I just hope that Poch doesn't overdo it with sticking with him when he doesn't perform. If Madueke is there, potentially a Mudryk on the right, if he keeps using Nkunku in the left, that's the part that concerns me. A bit like, Tuchel had his few players that he never dropped. Lampard, well, we never really got that far because everyone was dreadful, but managers often have players that they never drop even though they should, like Jose with Ivanovic back then, right? I just really hope Sterling doesn't turn into that for Poch. Are you concerned about that, or do you think it's purely because Madueke wasn't here?
No, I do think he will get played a lot. It slightly concerns me if he doesn't pick it up, obviously. I think the thing is with Sterling is he has the tendency to pop up with a goal because he gets into areas. He does, and he made a career out of it at City. The myth that he was like playing really well at City, he was getting in positions to score goals because he was in an elite team and everybody was finding him in those positions. He's very good at sniffing out where the goal is at times, and being the last man to get on the end of it and sort of getting those rebounds, sort of those into the box, one touch finish. He's done it a few times for us. I think his best asset is when he's right up in the box and he is there to score goals, but I don't think we use him in that way. And yeah, I think he'll get played due to his wages, his experience. He's like one of the older players in the squad. So yeah, he needs to pick it up because I still think even if he doesn't pick it up, I think he'll still play him, which is a worry.
Yeah, and that's exactly my worry. I mean, obviously, if Madueke, when he does get charged, is so much better. Maybe he just forces it on Poch, but I agree. And also, Madueke missing all of preseason. Madueke is going to take until the end of August to be properly fit anyway. So, it's not like this is going to be a quick fix. Like, then the only real option is Mudryk on the right and keep Nkunku on the left. But then that still leaves you with Chukwuemeka in the middle until we sign Kudus or Olise or whatever. So it's all not really ideal with what's happening with Sterling here. Pais, obviously, you've made it clear on Twitter. You've made it clear on the stream here a couple of days ago. But it's a real issue. Does it concern you that Poch may stick with Sterling way too much as the season goes on? Or do you then think if he sticks with him enough, eventually Sterling will sort himself out a bit?
I think if he sticks with him enough, I think eventually he'll get dropped. I hope so, but I hope squad politics don't come into the play, which I feel like they will. His wages, his experience, his status. I hope Pochettino kind of ignores that and just, does drop him. I mean, there's no way he should start against Liverpool, but he's probably gonna. Let's be honest. For me, I think it would be great if sort of Nkunku is kind of going to try that left-hand side a little bit more. Maybe you have, Nkunku and Mudryk on the right, and then hopefully we sign someone like you said. But yeah, he's been dreadful. I would sell him while we can, to be honest, but I know there's not going to be any offers, unfortunately.
Exactly. Pais just, DM someone. Figure it out, man.
Bro, I'll try my best. No,
there you go. Go on,
it's not going to happen, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, one more he'll get one more season, then he'll go after. I think if he plays terrible this season, 2 bad seasons, I don't think he'll stay after that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll try to get him gone, but the wages can be a problem if he doesn't want to go.
That's the thing. I don't think we've tried to get him gone. We've thoroughly planned him, with our squad this season.
Oh no, but if he has another bad season next summer, that's what I mean. We might try to make him leave then, but the wages will still be an issue then, won't they? But yeah, I mean, we kind of spoke about Chukwuemeka in enough detail already. I guess we can hint on Nkunku. His injury obviously was unfortunate. He came off so early, should have had a penalty, without a shadow of a doubt. But mostly, I want you to talk about Mudryk before I let Conor talk about him. Mudryk, every time, like, he clearly was not injured. Look at how he played for the whole game after he was subbed on. Still can't understand whatsoever why he wouldn't have featured against Fulham. Because to me, Mudryk, every time I see him play, to me, just slowly gets better and more confident. So all you need to do with Mudryk, in my mind, is just keep playing him. Because it's not like a Sterling where he does nothing right. Yeah, Mudryk will have his moments where he has a bad touch, or even after that wonderful touch, the Neymar touch from the Reece James switch ball, that pass, even though I understand what he attempted, I think the pass to, I think it was Jackson, but that was overhit. Now, he got intercepted anyway, but it was way overhit. Those things might happen to him, but just play him, and those things will happen less and less and less and less and less. Don't play Sterling all the time. Mudryk is the guy that hasn't actually played that many professional football games in his career. Obviously, Ukraine for a while, stopping their league with the whole war going on, and obviously coming through over there anyway. And now coming to us in the second half of last season, he didn't always play either. Just play the kid, and I guarantee he will be so good. That was definitely not a shot at Rizzo. That was definitely a pass. But like he will just play him, for the love of God, because the guy, to me, is just, very few players can do the things that Mudryk can do, because there is very few players that can combine that ridiculous pace. I mean, he might be the fastest player in the world, but that ridiculous pace with, other than with a few exceptions, good touches. He sees a pass. Like, remember back to that West Ham away game. He sees a pass like very few players can. How often do you see players that are that fast that can pass like that? That's not a thing. And even he can cross. He can play corners. He can play free kicks. Even that curler that he went for the far corner, sure, he put it wide. But you can see the shooting technique is there. It's not, he can clearly hit the ball properly. So just let the kid play and develop and get confident, To me, then it's just, you've got a guaranteed top player on you if you just let the guy play and not play him against Fulham. And I don't understand why it's the third manager now that does this. Pisses me off. Just play him, for the love of God. But yeah, I'm very excited about Mudryk. I like him a lot, other than the weird things he does off the pitch, which hopefully he stops doing, or has stopped doing now. But yeah, Pies, do you agree with me? Are you not quite as hyped and excited by Mudryk as I am? How do you see that one?
No, I definitely am as hyped and excited. I feel the same way as you. I think if you give him a run of games, he's only going to get better and better. He's got so many good attributes. Like you said, there's very rare players. It's very rare that you find a player that can combine that pace with actual ability as well. Like, some of his crosses yesterday were so good. Like, honestly, and something we haven't really seen from him, yet so far. So, and just the thing is with Mudryk, it's like, it's not like he makes you excited, but he's also like a danger. Like, every time he gets on the ball, you think, okay, something's going to happen. Like, you saw yesterday, that left back, every time he got the ball when he was out on the left, he backed off him and sort of was like, he didn't know what to do, because if you go too close, Mudryk will skip past you. But I'm very excited. Scored a great goal in training as well, to be honest, and he's definitely got that shooting technique. So hopefully we see him shoot more in the Premier League, and just keep the confidence high. But it's going to be difficult to do that if he's not playing regularly, and that's the problem with Sterling is Sterling almost blocks that one winger spot because he always bloody plays, just based on reputation. So yeah, that's frustrating. But Mudryk's definitely, he's not too good to flop, but like, he almost is with his talent, if you know what I mean. Like, if we didn't get the best out of him here, then I think that would be our fault totally, and not his.
Yeah, no, I do agree. Ladies and gentlemen, by the way, I haven't told you at all yet. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. We have 300 people watching, so every new subscriber counts. Still on the road to 20,000 subscribers. Please hit that big red. I keep forgetting it's not red. That big subscribe button, and help us get there. Every new subscriber counts, like I say, and let's get to 150 likes as well. Really helps me spread the streams and this content out to more people, because that's how the YouTube algorithm works. New subscribers, they're like, oh, this channel is getting new subscribers. Let's show it to more people, and the same with likes. So leave that like, hit the subscribe button. I massively appreciate it. Connor, where do you sit and stand on the Mudryk situation? Like myself and Pice, someone in the chat like Supreme said, yeah, he still doesn't view Mudryk as starting quality yet. Now, if we had Hazard and Neymar playing, sure, but we have Sterling. I mean, it obviously depends on who the other who the other players in that position are, I suppose. But how do you view Mudryk? Does he just need to keep playing? Because I swear every time he plays, to me, he gets better and better every time, aside from the first game.
I'm fully in agreement. I'd start him every week. I think he just offers that just burst of pace. Like, his pace is ridiculous. Had people going at me, replying to me on Twitter yesterday because I compared his pace and power to Mbappe. Nothing else, just his pace and power. I'm saying that I think they're comparable because I think
they're absolutely comparable.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like his acceleration is just ridiculous. How quickly he turns that. I think was it against Fulham, where he did that. He just like punted it to the byline. It's just gone, and he's just ridiculous in that sense. So I'd play him every week, let him develop organically in this side. I think he just needs to get a season under his belt at playing in a proper system because people seem to forget like last season was his first proper senior season, really, like senior level, and he needs the year of coaching.
In Ukraine, but that was it.
But he needs like this. He needs to grow in a team and like make connections with players, have Pochettino coaching him, like when to use his pace, when to go to the byline, like his decision making, which I actually think is getting better already. You can see there's times where he'll go himself down the byline. There's times where he sort of yesterday did that little cut back to Chilwell going down the byline, like cut inside and then cut it into Chilwell. So his decision making is already getting better. I just think he's a danger at all times. He's one of those players where you, like Pies said, or I don't know if it was you or Pies, but when he gets the ball, it's just you can almost always think something's going to happen because he's just so electric.
And you just see that players are scared of him. You just see it, and that helps your team.
Yeah, because then there's also the fact, I think I said this when Mudryk signed last season. I wrote an article about it when we signed Mudryk and Madueke. Even if they're not on their A game, when people know what they can do, sometimes they can draw two defenders and that leaves other people open. So it's a positive without being a positive. Like just having Mudryk out wide can then draw people over to that side, and then that will leave the likes of Chukwuemeka, Sterling, Madueke, Jackson, all these players with one less man. So these are the things that are going to help us, and I would play him every week. Just let him grow.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. The only thing I wish we did a bit more, and we didn't really do it last season, and we haven't really done it so far in preseason, is use his pace. You know how Chilwell and Silva play these over-the-top balls. I don't really understand why we don't try those to Mudryk yet. Mudryk doesn't make those runs, but to me, that if he was just told to make those runs, he would make those runs. So I think we should tell him to make those runs and try to find it, because if you just play the pass right, there is no one that can catch him. So especially if against teams that play a high line, just even to try it, like make him start the run. And even if you then don't hit that pass, the defenders will all shit themselves, try to run after him, and therefore create a huge gap between their own defense and midfield, making it much easier for us to get higher up the pitch with our attacking players. So I think we need to use that much more. But at the end of the day, he's played well pretty much every time he's been used so far this preseason, so I don't see how he won't get a good amount of minutes. I just hope he gets also the starts, because as much as Nkunku off the left has worked better than in the middle, make it work in the middle. It's not worth to not play Mudryk purely to have Nkunku not in the middle. I just don't. And I understand the whole pushing inside thing, but no, I think Mudryk needs
He can do that from the right, though. He can do that from the right. People just don't, we haven't seen it, but he could definitely do it from the right. Then he could just drift inside. Both. But I meant Nkunku. I mean, you could put Nkunku on the right. He could drift infield because he'd become a second 10. So
yeah, exactly.
There's flexibility
everywhere. Rather
than
keeping fucking Sterling on the pitch the whole time. Exactly that. All right, let's get to good old Nicolas Jackson. I assume we're probably all going to agree with this. If we had to crown a player of preseason, would we all agree that it would be Jackson, Connor?
Yeah, for me, definitely.
Pice, would you go with that as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think he's been the best overall.
Absolutely. And even yesterday, even though he should have scored, especially the first one, even though obviously the referee should have given a penalty. And also, by the way, what we didn't mention, the goal that Dortmund scored was also offside. But hey, it is what it is. But yeah, he should have scored that one, I guess. And then he had that second one, which was difficult. The finish itself was really hard. But if he had a better touch before that, it could have made the finish easier. So there was an opportunity to score 1 or 2 goals yesterday. But still, in general, how he drives with the ball, how strong he is, how hard he works to keep the ball and win the ball, how he's willing to receive the ball with his back to goal, with his back to a centre-back, and just deal with that, and then have the pace and the dribbling ability, the technique to dribble with the ball, especially on a pitch like that was yesterday, makes it even more so impressive to dribble the way he did at times. And the more, I mean, I've said that about many signings over the years, and it often didn't quite come to fruition like that. But I would say the more he plays with all of these teammates around him, the better that the whole thing will come, because the way he likes to link up, the way he likes a little flick. Now, Havertz and Mount, they also sometimes like their flicks and sometimes overdid it. But if you do the flicks and do them right, there's nothing better to get build-up play gone, because you can send players in the wrong directions, create more space. He's a top player. Again, the only thing I haven't seen from him yet is heading. We've heard that it's one of his weaknesses, sure, but I want to see it rather than just judge from the past. But yeah, I'm a big fan, and I mean, I can only say what I said yesterday, regardless of also political reasons why I don't want to sign Vlahovic. But also, I don't need Vlahovic. He's just going to be on 200 plus K, probably sit on the bench, in my opinion, because I think Jackson's better. So, I understand you need competition, but there's no need to have competition on 200K when the guy you have playing, that should be playing, is Jackson even on 100K? Probably less than that. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm a big fan of Jackson. And as much as we saw a few of the misses or the finishes not being quite as good yesterday, hopefully by the time we get to Liverpool, he doesn't have the striker curse of Chelsea, because I think there's a really good player in there. And if we can make it work, how often have we said over the last 2 years, why can't we scout these players and turn up with them that no one really expected to be this good? Well, Jackson could be exactly that guy. And how wonderful would that be, wouldn't it? Pies, I'll let you go first. What do you have to say about Jackson? And none of us knew him, really. Maybe we would have heard his name, maybe some of FIFA or whatever else. But none of us really knew him from his time at Villarreal. And then we signed him, we learned our things, and we learned, okay, he's quite good, he's good at this, good at that. But I don't think any of us expected him to be what he was in pre-season. Or did you, Pies?
No, I didn't. I think he's been an absolute gem of a signing. I think not only does he run in behind, which we haven't had with all of our strikers, he's got very good movement, but it's the timing of his runs, which I think is really good as well. It's his pressing, man. His pressing is just non-stop. He chases after every single ball, and he's going to be a nightmare for Premier League defenders, because he just doesn't give up. He doesn't stop. He looks extremely fit. And
he doesn't moan either. You remember when Sule pushed him over there by the advertising boards? He wasn't on the floor crying, moaning, whatever. No, Sule helped him up. They shook hands. Off we go. Do you know what I mean? Not moaning, not complaining. Just get on with it and work.
The one thing I've been most impressed with is just how good he is on the ball. As a footballer, how secure he is when he gets that ball. Not even his hold up. I'm just talking about general dribbling and just touches, and just when he's on the ball, he's so secure. He's not sloppy. It's really the ball kind of sticks to his feet. There was one moment yesterday, where the guy scooped it from behind him and tackled him. He was through on goal. The way he turned and just ran with the ball, he kept the ball so close to his feet, and he just looks brilliant. He looks really well-rounded. And yeah, we'll see what happens with the striker position, but he should definitely start against Liverpool. That the amount of times he's going to get to run in behind against Liverpool is going to be really good. And I think if we can play a couple of those balls into him, he'll have a chance to score in that game. And yeah, he just seems so perfect for the way we play as well.
And he couldn't be more different to Vlahovic, which is why I'm saying, what do we do with Vlahovic? I understand different options, but give me another Giroud. What we need is a Giroud. An older player that can do a job off the bench, can bring a different ability in there, a bit stronger in the air, a bit more physical. What we need is Giroud. Is there another Giroud out there? Has anyone known? Do you know who would be Giroud? Fucking Lukaku, but he's a dickhead instead. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, there you go. Pies, anything else you wanted to add to that? Otherwise, I'm going to give it to Connor.
No, I think I've explained it all. I just think he's been really well-rounded, and yeah, I mean, getting the goals he has and assists as well in pre-season, obviously impressive. And the thing. Oh yeah, the only other thing I wanted to mention was when he banged his fists on the grass.
Yeah.
When he missed that chance, I was and at halftime, I was this is so good, because we can actually see he's visibly annoyed, and he just wants he's striving for perfection. He's so annoyed at himself for missing that, and I like that a lot.
Absolutely, no, I couldn't agree more. Connor, you also agreed that he play off pre-season, but I assume also you didn't expect him to be as good as he has been this pre-season, did you?
No, so I knew little about him. I think I knew a little bit more than some did, because I remember the last time I was on, it was actually just before we signed him, and I'd watched quite a few of his Villarreal games in whole to analyze him. And like, I knew how good he was at running in behind and his timing of run and like, especially running into the channels. But what really surprised me is just how good he is on the ball. Like, there's like, because obviously compilations and stuff can make anybody look good at dribbling, but it's very consistent with him in pre-season. He's very good, keeps that ball really tight. His touches are just very like perfect, really. Like even those flicks, they're very rarely overweighted. They're very well thought out. So yeah, been more than impressed with him. Like surpassed anything I thought he would be. Definitely.
Exactly. And I mean, as a last question before we need to round this one out, how do you explain that? Like, do you put that down to Villarreal just playing in different ways, or how can it be that you watched multiple games from him at Villarreal and didn't really see the things that we've seen from him here? Like, how is that possible then? Is it just him trying harder, or the move in itself like just got more out of him because he's like, this is my real big chance in football now? I don't know, because it's kind of weird when you, at his previous club, he didn't do those things really, and now he does, and he clearly can do them. So why wouldn't you have done them before?
Yeah, so like I saw like parts of his game like doing that, but in the compilations, but like in the full games that I watched, it was, I don't know whether it was just they had less of the ball and like it was more just putting him into the channels to sort of hold up the ball and like alleviate pressure for them, but it wasn't as much, nowhere near what we've seen in pre-season so far for like these 5 games. But the one thing I will say about Jackson, just to end off it with Chelsea, is I think you said it as well. I think he fits us like a glove. I think the fact that he's always making a run, I've seen commentators and like other footballing experts saying that he fits us really well because he's a dream for the passes that we've got, because they don't even have to look. They know he's going to be going. Yesterday with Silva, played one straight over the top. We've got Enzo and Chilwell, who literally like that's their bread and butter, playing those balls over the top into those spaces. So just knowing that he's always going to be making one of those runs, it means that we've always got an out ball, which we haven't had for years, pretty much since Diego Costa.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, obviously Nkunku got injured yesterday, but not only do you I mean, maybe Jackson has it too. We'll have to wait and see. He certainly has looked clinical until yesterday. But you add to what Jackson does and what, Jackson brings, and you add that seemingly Nkunku's gene of knowing where to be to get a dirty, easy tapping goal, which we haven't had since Diego either. Maybe Tammy to an extent in that first season, but not, didn't feel like the way Nkunku has it. To combine those two together, I can only be positive. We just need to fix the midfield, which is why I've been so critical of Winstanley and the ownership, and why I've not been like, it's still a month time in pre-season of the transfer window. Yeah, I don't care. We don't have a midfield, man. We shouldn't have signed a new goalie before then. We shouldn't have signed another centre-back before then. We shouldn't have signed all of these things. No, not another 3 10-year-old midfielders. No, what we needed was Caicedo, and nothing should have taken priority before that. I understand it takes a while and everything, but you shouldn't have even looked at anybody else before finishing Caicedo off, because had you done so, you would have got him for 20 million cheaper before Rice ever went to Arsenal. But you mugged around, and now we have to pay extra. Even having to find dodgy deals for bloody Robert Sanchez to make it happen, probably. But yeah. Otherwise, I think we're about done talking about that Dortmund game. I think we all agree we probably deserved. Well, we all agree that we deserved to win. We all agree that we probably deserved to win it by a bit of a margin as well, because Dortmund had 2 shots, and they were kind of back to back, really. The goal was offside anyway. We had a clear penalty not given. Sure, Reece James had a red card not given against him. That was a clear red, to be fair, which would have been late in the first half. Sorry, but yeah, in general, as much as the result wasn't perfect for this one, it was another good performance, and kind of we played well in pretty much every preseason game. The worst one probably was against Newcastle. I didn't see much of that game, so I'm not in the best position to judge that. But Newcastle was also the best team we played against, and we still, did all right. Judging by what I've heard from people, and so probably arguably deserve to win that as well. So in general, I'm pretty happy with this preseason. The one last thing I guess I can quickly bring up is this one here that, there was yesterday talk about this mystery club bid. Fabrizio said Chelsea aren't scared about that. They hope the deal for Sanchez will help the relationship with Brighton. Caicedo is still pushing to join Chelsea, and talks are ongoing. No combined package deal as too slow for negotiations. I'm not sure in what way it's too slow for negotiations, but Pys, before we round this one out, where do you stand at the moment for the Caicedo thing? Like, do you think the Sanchez deal will play a changing role or not really?
I'm not sure, to be honest, because like, I mean, maybe like 5-10 million, but I think we'd be lucky, to be honest with you. I still feel like we're gonna have to. I think 95 million will be the minimum, to be honest with you. Like, I think we're gonna have to reach very close to 100 if we want to get it done. But who knows? I mean, who knows? If I had a prediction, I would say not really, just because that's the way Brighton are. I don't think they'll want to. Yeah.
And that's why I wouldn't have got it done so quickly. That's why I wouldn't have got it done so quickly. And yeah, Crispy, the injury update is that there's not really an update, and I baited you like Chelsea baited us on the 5th stand up with their notification. Essentially, it doesn't look like it's serious, but we don't know how long he'll be out for. Will he be fit for Liverpool? Will he be out for 2-3 weeks? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But he walked all right yesterday. He said when someone understands asked him, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yeah." So I don't think it's definitely nothing bad. But he might still be out for 2 or 3 weeks and miss a couple of games. I guess we just have to hope that he doesn't, I suppose. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time we wrap this one up. One more time, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. That would be massively appreciated. Hit that like button for me. Please check out my wonderful guests down in the description below. Check out Conor's YouTube channel, as well as obviously his Twitter page for all, kind of analytical side of things. A bit more than we do on here, where it's a bit, mixing and matching of analysis and opinion and shouting and crying. A mix of a lot of things. Conor gives you more purely focused on the analysis. So please do check that out. Link is down in the description, as well as Spice's website, londonsfirst.com, or of course, which Conor also sometimes writes for, as far as I'm aware. So, even more Conor content for you there. And obviously, please do check out Pice's Twitter, even though, as I keep saying, chances are you already are following Pice on Twitter with his 400k followers. But if you don't, please do. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up to Chelsea. Upwards and onwards, and we'll see you next time.